once again.
Hello again, here it's Jimmy at O'Reilly's, and today I'm going to show you a video, 3 reasons why DPFs can be damaged beyond repair and what you can stop doing to avoid it happening to you. So here I have a BMW 5 Series that I can just use to demonstrate, and we'll get some diagnostics loaded up just so we can give you a better description and explain what we're talking about. So we'll move on to number 1 straight away, which is doing a forced particle filter regeneration. Now, if you have a little read there, so this actually tells you here on this, which it doesn't do on a lot of diagnostics systems. So it basically tells you that if you have any of these sort of faults, that your regeneration is not going to be successful. Exhaust emission, temperature sensors, pressure sensors, EGR valves, and then you have air supply faults, which would be boost leaks, charge pressure control, fuel rail pressures, any of those sort of things, cooling fan, all of that. But what a lot of people tend to do is, without checking why you have a problem with the DPF, they'll just continue with doing a forced regeneration, and that will increase the temperature in the DPF. Now, if you've got some of these faults like this and you've had them for a long time, boost leaks or whatever, and you do forced regeneration, it's only going to last a certain amount of time if it's successful. But what you're going to do as well is, if it's blocked to a certain point, you're going to cause overheating in the DPF, and you can damage it by melting or cracking. Now, not only can you damage it from that being too blocked, but if it's a case of you're going to regenerate it and you haven't fixed the faults, then you're going to regenerate it every few weeks or whatever. You're going to have to keep repeating that procedure over and over, and by repeating the procedure, regeneration, you're just damaging the DPF. Now, usually what we do before we're going to do a DPF, we don't usually do a DPF unless it's absolutely 100% necessary, but we'd use some sort of fluid like this, and we'd put it in through the DPF and just accelerate the car normally without doing a regeneration, and that would normally bring down the soot and the pressure levels. We've seen the pressure levels come down recently with videos on this, from 600 millibars down to less than 50. So there's no need to do any sort of forced regenerations by using a fluid. Now, if you get a really bad DPF where it is sort of completely blocked, you use this, get it down to an acceptable sort of limit. If you get it down sort of to a couple of hundred, and then you can do forced regeneration if you have to. But by doing that, the fluid is breaking down the vast amount of the DPF blockage, and then doing a regen on a semi-blocked DPF is not going to cause you so much issues. Now we'll move on to number 2, which is a misuse of additives. Now, a lot of people are adding additives into the DPF or into the fuel tank, which are sort of flammable additives that will increase the temperature again of the DPF. So a lot of additives out there, they increase the temperature of the DPF to try and raise the burn temperature to get the DPF to actually clean. So the problem with that again is, if you raise the temperature high enough to cause irreversible damage, it's too late to go any further with the DPF. So it is a good idea to do a lot of research on what sort of additives are available, which ones are the best, which ones actually use chemicals that are going to clean the DPF without raising the temperature so much that you're going to damage it. Now, I've seen some people even add stuff into the DPF, flammable liquids, all these sort of sprays that are flammable, which is not going to do anything apart from raise the temperature enough to damage the DPF. Now, of course, obviously some of them may work, but you are damaging the DPF in the process. Which again then brings us on to another can of DPF cleaner here. So this one, actually, it doesn't combust. When it goes through the combustion chamber, it actually reaches the DPF and softens up the soot. So the DPF can actually do a regeneration at lower temperatures than normal. So if your DPF, for instance, is going to burn at 600 degrees, you can probably get it down to 400 or whatever by using an additive. Now, this additive here, I've done a lot of research on it, and it seems to be a very good additive that you can use. Tried it on a few cars, put some in the tank, and even without cleaning the DPF itself, it does bring down the filter's flow rate a little bit. It brings down the pressure. So yeah, I would recommend using this. This is one of the better fluids on the market here. It's just different languages of explanations on the back there. You can have a little read of that if you want to pause the video. And that's the name there, Launch UK DPF Flow Restorer. So most of my followers would probably realise that I have sort of switched over to this fluid now. Obviously, I've been using other fluids all the time, and I'm just, I've been experimenting on which ones are working the best, and these two are working the best for me so far now. And I'd like to say that I'm not sponsored by this company at all, but of course, if anyone wants to sort of tag these people, and if they do want to sponsor me, I'd be very happy to get sponsored. But it's just all on my own accord. I've just done my own research and testing on these fluids, and you've seen some of my videos that I've tried other fluids and then tried this, and this clearly had the best results. So yeah, anyone from Launch, you want to sponsor me on these, I'd be very happy to accept it. Right, well, we'll move on to number 3, which is resetting the adaptions when they shouldn't be reset. And if we look here on this diagnostic computer here, it gives you the option to do that, reset the adaptions. Now, I have made videos before on how you can reset the adaptions if your diagnostic machine isn't allowing you to do a DPF because the pressure is too high, or it thinks that the soot level is way too high. You can reset the adaptions to sort of trick the computer into doing a regeneration. But now, before you do that, obviously, again, on some of our videos, we have had to do adaption resets to get the car to work properly, but only after we've cleaned it with a fluid. You shouldn't really reset the DPF adaptions to tell it that it's not blocked if it is actually blocked, because again, you're going to generate extra heat and damage the DPF again. So what that actually means is, this is what a normal DPF would look like here. You got all these little honeycomb holes in it, and you can see, if I slide it along, you'll see how they get damaged. So you can see it's a little bit damaged there, and then this one is getting a little bit more damaged until you get to the point where it is actually melted and broken apart. So that's what happens inside the DPF there. So we're not going to continue with a adaption reset on this right now because it doesn't need it. So we'll go back and exit the service function. Now again, the reason we started using some of this DPF flow restorer after we've cleaned the DPF is, if you've got a fully blocked DPF and we've cleaned it, your DPF is now back to where it should have been. It's nice and clean, but now your engine is running perfect also, and once you drive down the road, the rest of your engine is going to have carbon soot deposits all over the place, your EGR valve, intake manifold, all of that. Then you are now driving with restored power, which is going to push all of that build-up that's built up because you've had the car in limp mode and you've been driving it around like that. So after you've had your DPF cleaned, the flow is going to restore. You're going to get vast amounts of boost pressure, pushing all of that soot back into the DPF. So what that would do by adding that in is, for that 500 miles that you are going to drive after the DPF is cleaned, that's going to break down all the rest of that soot and clean it. So I hope that answers all your questions on why your DPF can block up. Of course, the one other clear reason is, if your DPF is blocked and you carry on driving it for months upon months, it's going to, you're more than likely going to get it to the point where it cannot restart. I mean, I had a Ford Transit recently. He had DPF issues. Instead of getting his DPF cleaned, he called a remapping person out, a mobile remapper. Unfortunately, there's a lot of those people just going around on Facebook at the minute with computers, and he's deleted his DPF software without actually cleaning or removing the DPF. Now, you shouldn't really do that anyway, but if you're going to do it, you have to delete the actual DPF by opening it up, cutting out the internals, and then welding it back up, so you haven't actually got a DPF filter inside it. Now, he didn't do that. He just deleted the software from the Ford Transit. The guy then was driving around happy for about a month. Yeah, I'm all happy. Yeah, my car's fixed. Until it got to the point where the van would start and then stall out. It wouldn't even start up. Called me out. Tried to clean it. It was so block solid that I couldn't even get the van to start. and then he just ended up needing to have a whole new DPF put on there. Unfortunately, he was broke down on the A1M. I just went to see him roadside, tried to fix it where it was, didn't work. So he didn't want me to go ahead and put a new DPF on it there. He had to just get recovered back up to Manchester or wherever he was going, a few hundred miles away from where I am. But that's one of the reasons why, if you're going to get a remapper out doing any sort of software deletes on your car, you make sure that the part he's deleting, if it's a DPF for instance, make sure that's removed, and you're not just going to delete the software. You're telling the car that basically that it hasn't got a DPF when it has. Now the DPF, the car is not going to tell you that there's a fault there until it gets to the point where it's so blocked that the van wouldn't start, like this one, and the car or the van still didn't even register any faults because there was no faults registering, which is confusing. You're saying, why is it not starting? There's no faults registering. You open the DPF off, the van starts up. So the DPF's block solid, but it didn't show any faults for it because he deleted the software. So this has just been a little bit of a talk through video. I hope that's answered some of your questions again. Like I say, I'm trying to add this to sort of a few of my videos lately, but I've been sort of getting way too many calls for people just watching the videos and then asking me to, wanting to spend 30 minutes on the phone asking me, do I recommend this car? Do I recommend that car? Can I walk them through a repair that they're trying to do? Obviously, I'd love to help everybody, but I can't physically, answer 50 phone calls per day and spend an hour on the phone to each person. Only thing I can do is if you comment on the videos, I can try and comment back. And hopefully, if other people comment, you can read their comments and maybe get an answer in the comment section yourself. But that's it for now. We'll see you on one of the next videos.